On September 29, 2019, Deputy James and Deputy Zhang from the Shelby County Sheriff's Office in Tennessee, a potentially dangerous engagement unfolded due to their reckless actions. The incident began when the officers responded to a call regarding a package theft based on doorbell camera footage. The complainant, Mr. Aaron Branch's girlfriend's mother, alleged that a neighbor had taken a package from her porch. Upon arriving at the scene, Deputy James and Deputy Zhang engage with the witnesses, specifically Ms. Vernita Eccles, who identified the neighbor across the street as a suspect. She further mentioned that the neighbor might have a bench warrant for her arrest. Within minutes, the officers made their way across the street to confront the neighbor, seemingly without validating the claims made by the callers. Surprisingly, Deputy James immediately announced his intention to arrest the neighbor without properly investigating the situation. It was during this engagement that Mr. Branch, the original recorder of the incident, arrived on the scene while openly carrying a firearm on his hip. He questioned the officers about the package's ownership, leading to Deputy James ordering him to disarm for officer safety. However, Tennessee law permits citizens to bear arms for self-defense, and there's no requirement to disarm themselves around officers unless there's a legitimate safety concern.
Yeah. Okay, now that box that came off the front porch, did y'all see a name on that box by any chance?
We didn't get a chance to look at it because it was stolen before we got a chance to.
Now, if we show you guys what the box looked like, how you doing, sir? Are you an officer, sir?
Put your hands up, man.
I don't need to put my hands up.
This is for officer safety.
I don't need to put my hands up.
Put your hands up, dude.
The situation escalated as Deputy James unholstered his firearm, which Mr. Branch rightly challenged. This action was unnecessary and potentially dangerous escalation, as Mr. Branch was not displaying any behavior that indicated he posed a threat to the officers. Deputy James cited a state statute to justify his actions, but his interpretation was flawed considering the circumstances. Furthermore, the officers threatened to arrest Mr. Branch and his girlfriend for disorderly conduct, despite being on private property.
The proper procedures, you're supposed to ask if he has his handgun permit.
You don't know. Okay.
Yes, I do.
Hey,
yes, I do. We went to the class. Yes, I do.
I don't need to keep my hands up. I committed a crime.
Yes, put your gun away.
I have
You
not
ask
for
officer
to see
safety.
his- you ask to see his permit.
Ma'am.
Okay, can he just step in the house then?
No,
I need
you
that
ask
car.
to see- no.
We're not talking to you,
I'm
man.
in
No,
my
sir.
car right now.
You
We're
ask
not
to see
talking
his
to you right
permit.
now.
You ask to see-
We're not talking to you
we're
right
going in the
now.
house then.
I don't need to go in there. I haven't committed a crime.
You have a
I
permit.
haven't committed. I do have a
We're
crime.
not saying.
Where's your permit?
Amber, record Officer James. We're gonna make a start today. I'm gonna make a start at
Come
James
on.
today.
There's
I'm gonna make
no
you a
threat.
start, James. I'm gonna make
Let me
you
see
a
your
start
permit.
today.
Step
Okay,
away, man. We're
you're
not
right.
talking to you.
Okay.
Let me see your
Okay.
permit.
Okay.
Keep this arm up. Let me see your permit.
I don't need to keep anything. I can do whatever the
This officer, no, sir.
Do whatever.
Calm down.
Do what you do. Do your
Police
job.
officers
Do your
are-
job.
He got the permit.
Police officers are in your presence.
The First Amendment protects speech on private property, and the officer's threats infringed upon this right. Legal precedents underline the special protection for personal liberties within one's home. The officer's subsequent behavior with an unidentified woman, initially detained due to the reported theft, raises Fourth Amendment concerns. While reasonable suspicion justified her initial detention, the officers extended her handcuffed detention in a police cruiser even after she provided evidence that could have dispelled their suspicions. Courts have ruled that such extended detentions could transform investigative stops into arrest, violating the Fourth Amendment.
There it is.
That's not,
Okay.
that's not
You go
how
to law
law
school?
works.
You go
I did go to law school.
Okay, you passed the bar?
I did
So
pass
you're
the
a
bar.
lawyer.
I am a lawyer.
Okay.
I don't have to
Just
disarm
go in the
myself.
house.
That's not how the
Just
law
go in the
works.
house.
Come here.
I'm not
Come here.
going anywhere with
Come
you.
here.
Just go
I
in
have
the
not
house.
committed a crime. They know I haven't committed a crime.
Okay,
They know I have not
Amber.
committed a
We're trying
crime.
to help.
Amber, I want you to record them. I'm gonna make stars out of both of them. James
ahead.
and Zing. I'm gonna make big stars out of them. I love tyrants. I love tyrants like yourself.
Either
Property.
you step inside or you go to
I'm
jail.
a private. I'm a law-abiding citizen.
5, 4,
I'm not your child.
Wait, hold on, wait.
Child.
Aaron,
Come on.
go, go.
I'm not a child.
No,
Bro,
because
you're
you're
not scaring nobody with that
Let
fucking
them
permit.
ask the question or whatever.
You're not talking about.
Despite these issues, Mr. Branch managed to de-escalate the situation through assertive dialogue. He challenged the officers' actions while maintaining composure and asserting his rights. Eventually, the officers released the detained woman, but not without her being held for an excessive duration. Now, let's move on to the next investigation. In an incident that occurred on July 3, 2021, officers from the Elkhart Police Department were called to respond to a disturbance at a hotel in Elkhart, Indiana. The officers stopped 3 teenagers whom they believed to be responsible for the disturbance and demanded that they identify themselves. As tensions began to rise, one of the bystanders at the scene started recording the encounter.
who I am. It doesn't matter. Talking about us. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. He doesn't want you guys back here. And to verify that, I need your names so that if you do show up again, you can then go to jail. Okay? So what is your name? Before I put you all in handcuffs and take you all to jail. Okay. Then you're gonna. I ain't gonna lie. I ain't going to jail, man. Okay. What is your name?
Y'all ain't got no ride, man.
We do. We waiting.
Despite the potential escalation, the officers did not conduct a thorough investigation into the situation. According to best practices for police interactions, responding officers are expected to perform comprehensive preliminary investigations, including interviewing witnesses to accurately determine suspects. However, the officers in this case seemed uninterested in investigating further and instead continued to insist that the teenagers provide their identification.
Because we can't verify that you are the parent or guardian? We can't. So again, I'm going to ask again before you all go into that. Does that make sense? What is your name? Like, we can't just release it. Let me talk to them. Let's talk to them.
But if they weren't part of the confusion, then I don't understand what's going on.
I told you multiple times.
The boys and bystanders maintained that they were not involved in the initial disturbance, but the officers did not seem willing to consider this possibility. The officers' conduct raised questions about their failure to follow proper investigation procedures, even though there is no legal obligation for police officers to conduct in-depth investigations.
You're not in trouble, man. But if you keep playing this game with us,
I want him to come out here before I say anything else.
They gone. They went out the back door. They went out the back door.
No, I'm talking about the manager that said that we was because he know it's not us.
No, it wasn't them.
Exactly. That's why I want him to come out here.
He doesn't want to come out here right now. Okay,
Man,
he has a job to do, which is inside. No, because he doesn't want you inside. He doesn't want you on the property.
He don't know it.
The bystander recording the incident questioned the officer's authority to detain the teenagers based on Indiana's trespassing laws. He argued that since the teenagers had not refused to leave the property when asked, they could not be considered trespassing. The officer countered by citing Indiana trespassing law, which allows charges to be brought against individuals who knowingly or intentionally refuse to leave private property after being asked to do so by the property owner or their agent. However, legal precedent indicated that a police officer who is neither the property owner nor an agent of the owner cannot create a trespass violation merely by asking someone to leave and then arresting them for noncompliance. In this instance, the officers were acting in their capacity as police officers and not as agents of the property owner, so their detention of the teenagers on suspicion of trespassing seemed unjustified.
These are not them. These are not them. So would you like these gentlemen also trespass on the property?
We didn't have nothing to do with it.
Yes.
No, they had nothing to do with it.
All right, man, get my... Stand up.
The other dude turned off the gun.
It was taller boys who are probably already all gone because they knew that you were coming and they don't want to
That's what
deal
I
with police.
until he come out here.
Fair enough, but when I walked in, he pointed to you gentlemen.
Man, that's all him to come out. You got money for nothing. You got money for nothing.
He didn't want to come out.
It wasn't that hard for him to come out here and clear it up. He trying to put it in here to take me to jail.
Because you're not cooperating.
You're not doing his job
It's easy
right.
for me to control the situation.
I
am doing my job right.
See, y'all don't know
What's your name, badge number?
He was talking about. They was in there talking about gunplay with this dude, man. That's
Sure,
what I said.
and
Y'all
when I
didn't have
got
nothing
here,
to do with it.
listen, when I got here,
Yeah.
he pointed to these gentlemen.
We told you it was
Okay.
the description that he gave.
I can't take your word for it when he pointed to you.
Furthermore, Indiana law does not have a stop and identify statute that mandates individuals to provide identification during criminal investigations. The statute requires individuals to provide identification to law enforcement officers, and that only applies when someone is stopped for an infraction or ordinance violation. This means that the officer's demand for identification lacked a legal basis.
He did. He pointed
He
to
was
you.
already in there,
He
bro.
pointed to
I
you.
don't want to hear
Okay.
your conversation.
That's
You
why
already in
Name
the
and badge
hole,
number,
bro.
please.
You trying to dig yourself out of the hole.
Isn't Elkhart policy for you to identify yourself to the
My
public?
guess is they probably already left. Okay. That's because they all probably have their licenses. That's fine. And they drove off because they didn't want to deal with you guys.
The situation escalated further when one officer claimed that the hotel manager had misidentified the teenagers as the perpetrators of the disturbance. Despite the assertion from the bystanders that the detained teenagers were not involved, the officers seemed unwilling to reconsider their actions. The bystanders and teens remained composed, and with the intervention of the bystanders, the officers were eventually compelled to release the teenagers. Now let's take a look at another investigation. In a notable incident on June 12, 2020, a confrontation between an Amazon delivery driver named Deja Murphy and property owner Keith Miller in Lowell, Indiana, has brought to light the complexities of enforcing laws on private property. The incident, originally reported by the Times of Northwest Indiana and discussed on Lackluster's channel, involves issues related to traffic laws, private property rights, criminal confinement, and police authority. The situation unfolded when Miller, convinced that Murphy was speeding on his property, employed his truck to block her exit.
Good luck, buddy.
No. Bottom line is, I need your ID.
Sure.
You're going to pull your truck in your driveway.
Yep.
I'm going to get her information. I'm going to do a report, and we're going to go about our day.
I'm going to get my wallet from my office.
Huh?
No,
you're not. You're going to just give me your name and information.
Oh, sure.
I'm going to.
You want me to write it down for you?
Yeah. I don't need. I'm not spending all day with this. This is
I
ridiculous.
asked, and we have since put cameras up. I just said,
What's your last name?
down. Miller, M-I-L-L-E-R.
He proceeded to demand her identification, thereby initiating a tense standoff. Responding to Murphy's call, Officer John from the Lake County Sheriff's Department arrived at the scene. He clarified that he lacked jurisdiction to enforce speeding laws on private property, igniting a discourse on the distinction between public roads and private driveways. Indiana's legal framework underscores the limited jurisdiction of traffic laws on private property. State law specifies that highway regulations pertain to publicly maintained roads accessible for vehicular travel. In contrast, a private driveway, such as Miller's property, doesn't fall within this category. Therefore, Murphy's alleged speeding on the driveway couldn't be penalized as a traffic violation under Indiana law. However, exceptions do exist. In certain cases, police can enforce traffic rules on private property where the public's invited. This enforcement relies on local ordinances and agreements between property owners and law enforcement authorities. These provisions empower the police to regulate traffic and parking on private property under specific circumstances.
Thank you. Sorry. Pull forward.
Okay, ma'am. I need your license.
Okay. And may I ask about these?
Because you called the police, he called the police,
Just making
and
sure. That's
I'm
all I wanna
called
know.
here. That's why I need your information. That's all the information I need. And he's upset because you were speeding.
But
I
y'all
told
was-
him he couldn't do what he's doing.
And
You're going to go on your way, and if you have any issues, you and your company can stop delivering here.
Okay.
How's that?
He came to my door. That's what bothered me. He came in my door, opened the door, told me to get the hell out my door.
While these local ordinances may not encompass the full scope of state traffic laws, they still grant authorities the capacity to uphold specific regulations. Miller's actions also raise questions about potential criminal charges. Officer Marshall suggested that his conduct might align with the crime of criminal confinement, defined as knowingly or intentionally restricting another person's liberty without consent.
That's harassment.
You know what? Let's stop.
Okay.
We're going to do a report. We're going to go about our day.
It's harassment, though.
Everything's everything. You know what?
That's harassment.
There'll be a report on file.
While Murphy's situation didn't precisely match this definition, it highlighted the broader issue of maintaining public safety and individual rights on private property.
To the prosecutor's office?
This is Lake County?
Yeah.
Yes. We'll give you a case number.
Yeah, I want the case number too.
It'll be on the report, sir.
What's your name?
It'll be on the report. It's Marshall.
Marshall? Okay.
And tell your friend on the phone,
That's
I'm
my
not
friend.
upset
That's
with you.
That's my brother.
Oh,
That's my brother.
you know what?
You know where everything's going on? That's the only reason why I'm
Everyone's fine. We're here. I don't need your brother telling me my job and what we need to do. I think you need to get a hold of your supervisor and tell him
Oh
what...
no, we already talked.
Okay.
She was on the phone when all of this
Get a hold of your
happened.
supervisor. What's the phone number you can reach that?
219-779.
The incident also touched on the concept of harassment. However, Indiana law defines harassment as involving communication with an intent to harass, annoy, or alarm another person without legitimate communication. Because this definition doesn't cover in-person interactions, Miller's actions toward Murphy, while unsettling, might not fall within the legal definition of harassment. Fundamentally, the incident underscores the scope of police authority concerning private property and the need to strike a balance between individual rights and public welfare. Indiana's police power enables the state to enact reasonable restrictions on private property to ensure community safety, health, and morality. While the jurisdiction of traffic laws on private driveways remains limited, criminal violations, regardless of the location, can still lead to police intervention.
Police officers are charged with protecting the people, maintaining the law, and providing honorable and honest service to their communities. However, the repercussions can be severe and widespread when officers violate that trust and take part in corrupt practices. In this video, we'll look at several notorious instances of police misconduct and analyze how they affected society. So, let's get going. You've probably heard of police officers accepting bribes, but have you ever heard of the team's most popular officer being dishonest and carrying out his evil schemes in such a covert manner that not even his department is aware of it? So, how did he end up in custody? If you haven't heard of something similar, allow us to inform you that Sergeant Wayne Jenkins was a victim of it. A smart, crooked policeman. Sergeant Wayne Jenkins' eyes darted from screen to screen, sifting over the CTV footage in the dimly lit city headquarters of the Baltimore Police Department. 2015's that day saw streets filled with boiling rage. On the west side of the city, police officers were being attacked with bricks. Some were hurt. Jenkins hurried after them. In the midst of shouting, sirens, and buzzing helicopters, he seized a state prison department van and helped pull injured cops inside. When it was near Druid Hill Park, he intervened in the conflict and instructed the detective to take them to the hospital. A drug-dealing bail bondsman was awoken from his slumber several hours later in a peaceful waterfront district 15 miles east of the city center. His supplier required the disposal of 2 garbage bags full of prescription medications stolen from people who had also robbed pharmacy. Fresh after his heroic deeds in West Baltimore, Jenkins showed up. He opened the trunk and carried the pills inside the garage. After the bondsman handled selling them, the police sergeant and the latter would split the proceeds. Wayne Jenkins was living 2 lives at a time. He was already well known for running aggressive street squads at the age of 34. Later, he was in charge of the prestigious Gun Trace Task Force, one of the Baltimore Police Department's most effective tools for combating violent crime. He also served as the commanding officer of a team of police officers who engaged in robberies and narcotics trafficking. Jenkins and 6 members of his gun task force were charged with federal racketeering in March 2017, which shocked Baltimore. Many robberies, extortion, and overtime fraud were all allegedly committed by a group of seasoned police officers. Following the shooting death of Freddie Gray, long-standing mistrust of the police among many Baltimore residents grew. But the breadth and depth of these accusations were astounding. The Gun Trace Task Force was well known within the police force for its accomplishments in seizing alleged drug dealers, their caches, and their illicit weaponry. Jenkins was developing a reputation as a policeman in the division whose aggressive approach got results. His reputation as a cowboy who broke big cases through a frenetic pace of citizen stops and occasionally supplied evidence pointing up a chain of drug dealers was generally positive among current and former police officers. Jenkins, who had been praised as a rising talent by department leadership and rank-and-file officers early in his career, was a leader with a remarkable flair for delivering the goods. For his assistance in the 2009 recovery of 41 kilograms of cocaine, worth $1 million hidden in a man's truck at the time, it was touted as the largest cocaine seizure in the division's record. This was only one of Jenkins' numerous huge seizures. Did you know that Jenkins was awarded a Bronze Star for this huge achievement? Although it may seem strange, the Baltimore Police Department did not experience any instances of a police officer receiving both praise and criticism. In the world, Wayne Jenkins and his colleagues in plainclothes lived in success and wrongdoing, were not mutually exclusive. In fact, they occasionally seemed to go hand in hand. A year-long investigation by the Baltimore Sun turned up warning signs that Wayne Jenkins wasn't a reliable policeman. His supervisors and others either failed to see the warning indications or choose to ignore them. Between 2006 and 2009, Jenkins was the subject of at least 4 lawsuits that claimed misconduct. 3 of them resulted in the plaintiff's victories, either as a result of jury verdicts or the city's decision to settle the case. The suits, however, had no internal repercussions for the police agency. Despite the lawsuits and subsequent video evidence from the squad's body cameras, Jenkins' supervisors did not review the arrests he was making. His legal defenses regularly failed in court, despite the fact that he was removing criminal suspects off the streets. 2014 saw the delivery of a surveillance video to the state's attorney's office in Baltimore's Police Integrity Division that seemed to show Jenkins perhaps putting drugs in a suspect's car. Authorities investigated the matter and even presented evidence to a grand jury, but finally determined that there wasn't enough proof to warrant an indictment. The same video reportedly led to a rare police department disciplinary probe against Jenkins, who was accused of misbehavior internally in 2015. This information comes from a copy of the case file that the Sun reviewed. The investigators proposed Jenkins be demoted and placed on paid leave. According to the department's then Internal Affairs Chief, Daryl DeSouza, who was the deputy commissioner at the time, allegedly intervened to halt the penalty. DeSouza denies remembering the encounter, despite having later served as a commissioner and currently being in jail on federal tax charges, before being named in 2016 to lead the Gun Trace Task Force, one of the most recognized plainclothes teams in the police. These allegations of misconduct were made while Jenkins was serving in a number of plainclothes units, a long time before he was appointed. It is hardly surprising that Jenkins' greatest crimes, drug trafficking and robberies, were able to flourish in Baltimore's tolerant plainclothes culture, even if they seem to have been kept secret. These devices regularly operated unattended. They were free to hold and release suspects, as well as develop informants. They sometimes discreetly stepped over the line from aggressive policing to violating civil rights. When Jenkins first started stealing is unknown. In 2011, his first theft was reported. By the time his criminal career had completely taken off, it had already involved high-profile robberies and break-ins, and he was making over $170,000 per year, in part due to overtime fraud. To learn more about their activities, the Sun obtained thousands of pages of court records, dozens of body camera recordings, hundreds of emails from the police department, and a small number of internal files. A reporter also viewed court case recordings pertaining to the arrests of the cops. Over 50 people were questioned, including victims, prosecutors, defense attorneys, and current and former police officers. Jenkins allegedly robbed some of the defense attorney's clients. According to some of the attorneys, the bulk of his co-workers, including the police and prosecutors, told the Sun they were not aware that he and his policemen were involved in any illicit behavior. A drug associate alleged that Jenkins had been gathering narcotics off the street and profiting from their illicit sale for years before he was finally found guilty following an FBI investigation. Prior to joining the Gun Trace Task Force in 2016, some of his colleagues have also acknowledged stealing after an FBI investigation into the unit revealed the crimes committed by the GATF, Jenkins, and a number of other team members were taken into custody by federal agents. In June 2018, Jenkins was sentenced to 25 years in federal prison after entering a guilty plea to charges of racketeering, robbery, and record-keeping fraud. Corrupt police officers damage the reputation of their fellow officers who obey the law and honorably and devotedly serve their communities. They damage the reputation of the entire police force and make it harder for honorable officers to carry out their duties efficiently. The integrity of the judiciary and law enforcement is threatened by corruption, an immoral and unlawful practice. In addition to breaking the law, corrupt police officers damage the public's faith by taking bribes, covering up crimes, or employing excessive force. Furthermore, dishonest police officers can cause harm to innocent people by infringing on their civil rights, making false arrests, and acting abusively. This can result in erroneous convictions, the demise of the rule of law, and a loss of confidence on the part of the general people in the competence of the legal system to uphold their rights and interests. Public safety is compromised, and the rule of law is weakened by corrupt police officers. They undermine public trust in the police and foster an atmosphere of impunity where criminals feel free to act without consequence because they know that some police officers can be purchased or intimidated. What conclusions have you drawn from Jenkins' tale? Do you have any additional examples of dishonest police officers who were punished? If so, please tell us in the comments section.